Today's case, you guys, honestly gave me chills as everything unfolded. Okay, so just imagine this for a sec. You're going on a first date. You're probably a little excited, a little nervous. You know the feeling. For 19-year-old Sade Robinson, that's exactly how she felt on April 1st, 2024. She met up with her date. They went out to a restaurant, had some drinks, and then she just disappeared. Her friends and family, of course, were blowing up her phone, but nothing. The first sign that something was seriously wrong was how her car was found. The condition it was found in, wow. And that wasn't even the worst part. A few hours later, someone just taking a walk in a park found something that turned this whole thing into an absolute horror show. Let me warn you now, this case is one of the worst. This is the story of how a first date turned into one of the most brutal and calculated murders you can imagine. It's a case that got solved because of a crazy digital trail, pings from a location app, security camera videos, and text messages that basically created a map of Sade's last few hours. But more than anything, it's about a family who refused to let their daughter just be another headline, and their incredible fight for justice. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Zara, and today we're talking about a case that's super recent. It's absolutely heartbreaking and reminds us that the worst monsters just look like everybody else. If you're new here, this is what we do. We get into many true crime cases and we try to make sense of them together. If that sounds like your kind of thing and you want to be part of our little community here, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. It honestly makes such a big difference if you could also hit that like button too. That's the best way to help the channel out and get these important stories in front of as many people as possible. Also, for those of you who want to be a bigger part of what we do here, you should think about becoming a channel member. When you join, you get to be in our private Discord server, and that's where the conversation really goes down. We can talk more about the cases, throw out your theories, tell me what cases I should cover next, and we can just chat and get to know each other. It's really a great group of people, so if that sounds cool to you, just click the join button below this video. All right, grab something to drink, get some tissues because this one is a rough one. Before this all gets super dark, and believe me, it will, I really want you to know who Sade was, because she was not just a victim, she was a person, a really amazing one. Sade Robinson was 19 years old and she was, by all accounts, just killing it in life. Her family called her radiant, ambitious, a total boss. She was one of those people who, if they hit a roadblock, they just found their way around it. She was born on May 10th, 2004 in Vicksburg, Mississippi to Carlos Robinson and Sheena Scarborough. She spent her early years in Milwaukee at Craig Montessori School, and she lived with her mom and her grandparents during this time. When she was 3 years old, her mom had another baby girl with her husband, Jonathan Reams, and they named her Adriana. Sade was raised by Jonathan, and they too had a close bond, and Jonathan became a second father to Sade. Her dad, Carlos, moved to Florida, so Sade would spend her summers with him and visited her grandparents often, and they just seemed like pretty close, loving family. Sade was such a caring and protective older sister. As a toddler, she struggled with hearing issues, so she needed to get tubes in her ears to help, and this did cause some speech delays, which Sade just overcame as she grew up. Sade was involved in many activities growing up, including the Girl Scouts, soccer and ballroom and tap dancing, and she also had a little rap career with 2 songs before she retired. She loved music and loved to sing. At such a young age, I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like Sade was really living her life. She was busy, active, social, and seemed to be making the most of her life. By 7th grade, Sade was not happy at school. She was having some issues and decided to move to Florida to live with her dad, Carlos. She moved in with her dad, his girlfriend, and their daughter at their Cape Coral home, and she would then go home back to Milwaukee on school breaks, but she was actually really enjoying living up in Florida and attending Challenger Middle School. She then transferred to Ida S. Baker High School, and then over here, she really excelled. She became a member of the Junior Honor Society and joined the Army Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps. She then kind of struggled a little bit with her mental health due to some abuse she was dealing with. I couldn't find exactly what that was about, but it's none of our business and I don't really want to get into that. But due to this, she did have some thoughts of and struggled with depression. So she ended up moving back to Milwaukee after her mother, Sheena, fought to have her come back home. So she attended Riverside University High School right at the start of COVID-19. So that must have been incredibly tough, trying to make new friends and have a normal school life during a pandemic, but she did really well. Remember, she was a fighter and she got a job at Pizza Shuttle. She was known as a good employee, friendly, and declined becoming a manager actually because she wanted to pursue her studies. She just did her thing, saved money, and planned out her life. In 2022, she got a second job at Wisconsin City Club as a banquet server and even got her 17-year-old sister Adriana a job over there. Finally, Sade graduated from high school and was in college studying criminal justice at Milwaukee Area Technical College. I mean, how wild is that? She wanted to just be a part of the world of law and order, and she was just getting started before she became a victim of the worst crime imaginable. Sade was living on her own at this point at an apartment up in Brewers Hill, and she had a lot of money saved up and went traveling to many places like New Orleans, Atlanta, and even Jamaica. She bought her first car by herself, a 2020 Honda Civic, and called her Coco Chanel. She was a good cook and would often invite her sister, friends, and family over for dinner. Sade was due to graduate in May 2024 and then planned to join the Air Force and then the FBI after. And then I believe she had plans to travel to Hawaii with her mother too. Her mom, Sheena, has talked about how incredibly proud of Sade she was. She was just this bright, happy person who made everyone around her feel good. She was a daughter, a sister, and a great friend. She had this whole amazing life ahead of her, all these plans. And in the spring of 2024, she was just doing what 19-year-olds do, hanging out, going on dates, living. She had no way of knowing that a simple date would lead her straight to a predator. Sade, as you can see, was obviously gorgeous. She was that girl. She always had her nails done, her lashes done, her hair done, but she wasn't conceited. She was just conscious. She got a lot of attention from guys, and that's not shocking, but she did develop some trust issues with men after going through some stuff, but she decided not to close herself off completely. So on 31st March 2024, Sade was on a dating app and exchanged some texts with a guy. His name was Maxwell, and he was 33 years old. Now, that's quite a bit older than Sade, but the both of them didn't seem to have any issue with the age difference. After making solid plans, Sade and Maxwell agreed to meet in person for their first date. Sade had told Maxwell that she was in the mood for seafood, and he had just the right spot. He suggested a popular seafood restaurant in Milwaukee called Twisted Fisherman. Sade was excited, but had the usual questions, was it going to be awkward? What am I going to wear? Is he going to be weird in person? All the normal feels you feel on a first date. She was in fact so excited that she would tell almost anyone she encountered that she had a first date coming up, her friends, her coworkers, and even the maintenance worker in her building. So April 1st, 2024, Sade and Maxwell have their date set. They sent multiple texts to each other, and it was all just normal first date stuff, the kind of texts we've all sent. Sade went to work at Pizza Shuttle, and before her shift, she FaceTimed her mom. And they just had a quick talk, and Sheena told Sade to get some rest after work because she knew she had been working extremely hard, especially with the 2 jobs. Strangely, and maybe Sade had her own reasons, she didn't tell her mom about this first date, but she told pretty much everyone else. After work, she went straight to her date. Security cameras caught them at their first spot, Twisted Fisherman, and they looked like just any other couple. They're just sitting there talking. They look totally calm, totally casual. She even hugs him as she meets him, like nothing seems off. The date apparently was going pretty well because they didn't want the date to end. So after dinner, they hit up another spot, a bar called Duke's on Water at 6:15 p.m. Both of them, they got into Sade's car and drove to this spot together. So side note, Maxwell worked as a bartender and actually worked at both the Twisted Fisherman and Duke's on Water in the past. Again, they're on camera. Everything seems fine. They stay a pretty long time here till about 9:20 p.m. and then they leave. But this is where technology becomes the most important witness in the entire case. Sade had a location sharing app on her phone called Life 360. Her friends all used it too, and they all kept an eye on each other, which is both sad you have to do that and then also so smart. It's amazing that we have this kind of technology now, but at the same time, we need it because the world has gone downhill. The app tracked her every move. It showed her at the restaurant, then at the bar, and then it showed her next location, Maxwell's apartment. The second last time the app pinged her location was at his place at 12:45 a.m. the morning of April 2nd. He lived on 39th and Oklahoma Avenue in Jackson South, and CCTV from a neighbor showed Sade actually going into his house. It then showed her traveling at 1:33 a.m. to a place called Pleasant Valley Park right along the Milwaukee River, and then to another park called Warnemont Park by 2:45 a.m., where she remained until 4:30 a.m. And then after that, nothing. Her location just turned off at 4:45 a.m. The digital trail just stopped. That was it. That was the last time anybody knew for sure where Sade was. So the next day, April 2nd rolls around. Sade's supposed to be at work at Pizza Shuttle, but she never shows up and she's not answering her phone. And her friend AJ and coworker knew right away that this was not right. It was not like Sade at all to just ghost her job. She took her responsibilities very seriously. She was a reliable worker who never missed a day without a phone call. She was the last person to no-show. This was such a big red flag. They continually called and texted Sade, but there was no response. When Sade didn't show up or at least call by the end of the day, they called the police and requested a welfare check. The panic started to set in, but nobody could have prepared for what was coming next. Earlier that day, the first big clue was found. So a woman who lived in the area of 30th and Lisbon looked out her back window and saw a car on fire. The fire was inside the car and then it exploded into flames. She called the fire department and this didn't look like an accident to her because this area was known to be an illegal dumping ground and someone had deliberately set it on fire, obviously trying to burn away any evidence. A witness came forward later saying they saw a male figure step out of the car and then toss a lighter into it and then walked away. The car was completely torched, and after the fire brigade and the police arrived, they discovered it was a 2020 Honda Civic. They found items inside the car, including women's clothes piled in the trunk and a charred iPhone, revealing that the car belonged to 19-year-old Sade Robinson. Now, Sheena had realized she hadn't heard from her daughter all day, but she assumed she was tired from working 2 jobs and just resting. The next thing she knew, police were knocking on her door and informing her that her daughter's car was found torched. Sheena, as you can imagine, was obviously panicked, distraught. The police then went to search Sade's apartment on April 3rd for this welfare check. They could not find her, but they did find her wallet and her purse. The police then alerted the media to announce a critical missing person report, which can be made for a child or an elderly person or for someone who people believe could be in serious danger. Now that Sade was listed as missing all over the news, her family knew this was bad. This wasn't just her staying out late. Something had happened to her. They gathered family and friends and went looking for Sade in different search parties all over town. But the real horror show was still to come. What her family didn't know was that at around 5:30 p.m. on April 2nd, in this nice public park called Warnemont Park, 2 friends were just out for a walk and they found something that is straight out of a nightmare, guys. As they walked along the beach towards the water, they saw something on the shoreline. It was a human leg, just lying there on the beach near the water. I mean, can you even imagine? Police were called immediately and led to the human leg on the beach, and then police then swarmed the area. The leg was severed just below the hip socket and looked like it had been sawn off. It appeared to belong to a black female as the toenails were painted pink and no signs of decomposition showing yet. They rushed the leg off to be tested and combed the area for any CCTV footage to find out who left this leg here. It was this night at around 8 p.m. when Sade's friend AJ requested the welfare check on his friend. An officer contacted the sheriff's office to let them know that they got a call about Sade being missing and that she was 5 foot tall, and the sheriff's office was like, damn, this leg looks like it could belong to someone around that height. Soon, the leg was confirmed to belong to Sade. Horrific. Police then checked her phone records and saw that her phone had been in that exact park early that morning between 3 and 4:30 a.m. Her friends and families also told police about the Life 360 app showing her phone being in Warnemont Park on April 2nd at 4:30 a.m. The timeline was coming together and it was pointing to a crime that was just unbelievably brutal. The search was on for the rest of Sade's body and the whole city was just holding its breath. Once they found Sade's leg and her car, the cops just went into overdrive. It became super clear that the key to this whole thing was the digital and physical trail. So first, let's talk about the digital stuff because it's really what blew this case wide open. Police recovered texts on Sade's phone to Maxwell Anderson setting up a date. They had the Life 360 app data and CCTV footage that put her at his address as the last place she was ever seen alive. And then there was all the security video. This was the jackpot. Majority of their entire date was all caught on camera. They saw Maxwell and Sade at the restaurant and at the bar, and that was easy. But the really important stuff was from later. They found footage of Sade's car leaving his place early in the morning of April 2nd. They then found more video of her car showing up at Warnemont Park where her leg and phone were found. And then get this, the most damning footage found of Maxwell was him getting on a bus. Now, what's the big deal, right? He's getting on a bus. Maybe he didn't have a car since Sade was the one to drive them around on their date. But this footage, for lack of a better word right now, is chilling. Maxwell is seen on a bus camera walking across a grass field towards the sidewalk. and he's carrying this big, heavy tan backpack. A backpack they never, ever found. I mean, we can all guess what was probably in there, and it's just sickening. He's then seen taking the 35th Street bus to get back to his home, and on the bus footage, he gets on the bus. He looks a little on edge. He doesn't seem to have any blood on him, but he looks on edge. His eyes are like wide open. He then gets off at a stop and then goes home. Police acted fast. On April 4th, 2024, Maxwell was pulled over during a traffic stop, arrested, and brought in for questioning.
200 cell phone Hampton on, 45 cell phone Hampton on for Apollo, return for highway versus Chicago.
Any weapons on you, sir?
No. What's going on?
Yeah, somebody just radio it.
He admitted to going on a date with Sade, but said he had no idea what happened to her after their date ended. When they looked into Maxwell's past, they immediately issued search warrants on his home and car. They found a hoodie that matched the man on the bus seen immediately after Sade's car was torched. In his home, they find several cans of gas, blood on his bed sheets, and blood on the walls leading down to the basement. The basement, which was converted into a makeshift sex dungeon. There was a bed down there behind a curtain, a few wooden tables, and also a power tool still plugged in on a workbench. They also found an axe, 51 knives, a gun, and multiple knife sharpeners. These were all scattered throughout his place in every room almost. Multiple tools to dismantle a body, right? They found a pink safe with cash, meth, and marijuana inside. Hidden in the ceiling, they found various women's clothing, including underwear and a bra, a woman's ID, not Sade's, another woman. More women's clothing was found stashed inside the tool bench. A knife was left in the sink. They also found blood inside his car. It was like clearly on the speakers. So the blood inside and on his car belonged to Sade, but strangely the blood inside his home did not belong to her. What the actual... And it gets even worse. When they confiscated his phone during his arrest, they searched his phone and they found pictures. Pictures he took of Sade on his couch. She looked like she was unconscious and he was groping her. He took photos of her bare bottom with her underwear and white pants pulled down. Another showed Sade lying face down, like half on her side, wearing the same white sweater she wore on their date. The couch looked just like the one Maxwell had in his home. These photos were then deleted off his phone around midnight. And then just as these images were deleted, he turned on Netflix and watched shows like Love, Death, and Robots and Three Body Problem. He wasn't just a killer, he was a predator taking trophies of what he did. Maxwell was then charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson. Even though Maxwell was in custody, the suspected killer, the rest of Sade's body was yet to be found. The rest of her body, am I really saying that? So at the same time, the search for Sade's body was continuing and it just kept getting more and more heartbreaking. Sade's family felt the police weren't really trying to find her remains and it was just her family and friends out there on foot looking for her. On April 6th, a human foot along with flesh was found in the area of North 31st and West Galena Streets, close to where Sade's car was found. The remains were scattered near a park, wooded area, and train tracks. The foot had the same matching nail polish as the leg that was found earlier. Same skin tone and size too. On April 18th, a torso and a severed right breast washed up on a beach on Lake Michigan. Then on May 11th, a right arm washed ashore all the way in Illinois. The DNA confirmed it was all Sade. So Maxwell Anderson hadn't just killed her. He chopped up her body, scattered her remains all over the place across 2 states because, he thought it would help him get away with it. He literally tried to erase her. But he didn't. Every single piece of her they found was just more proof of what he did. Now, before we get into the trial, let's go through the CCTV footage that showed Maxwell's movements that night. So after Sade's phone was last pinged at Warnemont Park, police looked at CCTV footage around the area, and Sade's car was seen plowing through the park gates at around 3 a.m. and going down to beach level. A man is then seen walking down to the area where her leg was found. Her car is then seen leaving at 4:31 a.m. and minutes later, Sade's phone battery dies. The next morning, April 2nd, her car is found torched and witnesses see a man matching Maxwell's description wearing that tan backpack leave the car and toss a lighter into it before walking away at 7:30 a.m. Also, the clothes found in the trunk were found to be the exact clothes Sade wore on their date. They also found Sade's green stuffed animal, which was saturated in gas. Then he is seen on that bus footage and then getting on the bus to go home. He arrives home at 8:43 a.m. Before we get into the trial, do you want to know a little bit about Maxwell? Probably not, but let's get into it, and I will be very brief. Maxwell was 33 years old, so quite a bit older than Sade, and on paper, he had this normalish life. He was a bartender. He'd even been in the Navy for a little bit. He used to work at the same restaurants he took Sade to, which, looking back, is a little weird, right? But that was just the surface. Things get really sketchy really fast. This guy was no stranger to the police. He had a super long rap sheet going all the way back to 2014, and it wasn't just small stuff. It was a pattern of a guy who had a problem with alcohol and a problem with getting violent. He had a bunch of DUIs, disorderly conduct, but the big red flag for me, the domestic abuse charges. We're not talking about one little argument. These were serious incidents that show that this guy had a history of being violent and scary, especially with women. In July 2014, he got into multiple confrontations with female relatives. He even stole her car, crashed it into her home, got into a physical fight where she broke multiple ribs. In 2015, same thing. He was staying at a relative's home, and when he didn't, follow the house rules, they confronted him, and he threw a glass. He punched a hole in the wall. He smashed her phone when she tried calling the police for help. In 2019, he got into a fight with a woman, and when a man intervened, he attacked the man. In 2022, he was caught drink driving multiple times with a BAC of over 0.15. Very drunk. He was constantly put on probation and given fines. Even when he violated his probation by testing positive for THC and alcohol, the judge told him, "Come on, mate, just be sober as part of your probation." In 2023, he was taken off probation. Such a great justice system we have in this world. Let this man be free. So this is who Sade met up with. A guy who was really good at pretending to be normal, but was hiding a seriously dangerous and violent side. So that was Maxwell. The criminal complaint they filed laid out the whole horrifying story, all the digital evidence. It even mentioned that someone had tipped off the police that Maxwell had been talking about a plan to kill Sade. So this wasn't some argument that got out of hand. He planned it. It was calculated. Okay, so when the trial started, the prosecutors just came out swinging. They walked the jury through every single digital breadcrumb, the text, the location pings, all of it. They showed all that chilling security video that basically gave a play-by-play of their night. They put witnesses on the stand who saw them out on their date. The bus driver even testified that he remembered Maxwell on the bus that morning. And they brought out the forensic evidence like the sweatshirt Maxwell was wearing the next day that had both his and Sade's DNA on it. And of course, they showed the jury those disgusting photos from his phone. Now, the forensic evidence was important here because when I was following this case a few months ago, I was like, oh shit, the forensic evidence could tear this case apart. Why? Well, the weird thing is, okay, all that forensic evidence they found in his home, right? Outside his home, they were even on bloody gloves found on the beach, right? So the blood inside his home, strangely, none of it, like I said, had any of Sade's DNA on it. So the gloves that they found on the beach, they were like, yeah, this is it. These are the gloves he used. No. None of Sade's DNA on it. The knives, nothing. So does that mean he didn't kill her? No. But to me, it makes me wonder where he killed and discovered Sade's body. The photos on his phone showed her clearly unconscious on his couch inside the home. But luckily, his gray hoodie that he had wore on the night of the date and he wore on the bus was found in his neighbor's bin. So why was he trying to get rid of it? Why? Because it had Sade's DNA on it. They also found the red plaid jacket he wore on his date with Sade's DNA on it. Plus all the digital trail, the CCTV footage, hopefully that was enough to convince the court and the jury. Now, what makes this case even worse, yes, even worse, is what a police informant would testify to. Maxwell had a friend who happened to also be a police informant, which Maxwell obviously didn't know about. An interesting thing about psychopath killers is that they always freaking talk. They leak out their ideas and fantasies. Maxwell would tell this informant about a fantasy he had, a plan really. He told his friend about this new girl he just met online, Sade Robinson. He told him that he was going to lure her to his home, force her downstairs at gunpoint, where he would then shoot her and her body. Why? Because that was his lifelong fantasy. So telling him wasn't enough because he even brought his friend down to the basement and showed him how it was covered in plastic tarp and identified it as the place where he planned to kill her. He also said he would then dispose of her body parts throughout the city. The informant told police he saw 3 saws in the basement, which he believed Maxwell intended to use. This informant came forward to the police on April 15th, 2024, after Sade was already murdered. Why didn't he come forward before? Why? She could possibly still be alive if he did. The story the prosecution told was simple and horrifying. Maxwell got Sade to his house. He killed her, and then he did the unspeakable, chopping up her body to cover his tracks. So what could the defense even say to that? Well, they tried their best. They basically argued that there was no smoking gun. They kept pointing out that the blood they found on his walls wasn't Sade's. They made a big deal that none of her DNA was found in his place and none of his DNA was found in her car. They even tried to say that he looked too casual in the surveillance videos to be a guy who was about to commit murder, on his date. I mean, come on. They were trying to create reasonable doubt, I guess, where there just wasn't any. The digital trail was just too strong. It all pointed to one person, Maxwell. So after all was said and done, the jury went to deliberate. And on June 6th, 2025, they came back guilty on all 3 charges: first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson. They got him. Then on August 1st, 2025, it was sentencing day, and this was the moment Sade's family had been waiting for, the chance to finally speak to the man who ruined their lives. The courtroom was just electric with emotion, sadness, fear. Her dad, Carlos, talked about the pain that was just unbearable. He said when Sade was born, his entire life changed. And Sade's mom, Sheena, she looked right at Maxwell and called him a demon and a monster. She said, "You are the true definition of evil. My baby was so full of life and you took that away." Oh, it's just gut-wrenching. Oh. Maxwell, for his part, got up and said he was innocent and that he was going to appeal. He said, "I did not commit these crimes." But the judge wasn't having any of it. He looked at all the evidence, the brutality, the fact that this was all planned, and he gave Maxwell the maximum sentence. Max for Max. Life in prison with absolutely no chance of parole. Ever. He will die in prison. However, his lawyers till this day are still planning to appeal his conviction. A guilty verdict is great and a life sentence is justice, but it doesn't bring Sade back. It doesn't fix the hole that was ripped in her family's life. For them, the end of the trial was the start of a new fight, making sure everyone remembers Sade and fighting for people like her. I have to say, her family honestly has just been incredible through all of this. They've been so strong and so graceful when nobody could blame them for just falling apart. They refused to let this monster be the final word in Sade's story. Her mom, Sheena, has become this amazing advocate. She started the Sade's Voice Foundation, which is a non-profit that's going to help families of missing and murdered Black and Indigenous people. During media interviews, she later said, "Sade is our hero. My baby solved her own case. That's how I raise my kids. We don't give up. We are fighters." She's taking all of this pain and turning it into something powerful. She's trying to bring attention to the fact that women of color face so much violence and their cases don't always get the attention they deserve. She's making sure her daughter's legacy is about helping people. It's just incredible. Her sister Adriana had to grow up faster than ever. She struggled to read her statement in court without tears pouring down her face. And she said, "He sits there without an ounce of guilt. All my sister did was meet someone and he stole her life. I cannot meet any person without the fear that they're going to harm me. He stole my sanity. This man should never walk free again." But their fight isn't over on a personal level. They have begged Maxwell to tell them where the rest of Sade's body is. They still haven't found her head. All they want is to give their daughter a proper burial, to lay her to rest with some dignity, and he just stays silent. It's his little last act of cruelty against a family he has already destroyed. This case is just one of those that makes you feel sick to your stomach. It's truly the worst of humanity on display. But it's also a crazy example of how powerful modern police work can be. I mean, without that digital trail, this case would have been so much harder to solve. But it still leaves you with this huge nagging question, why? What was the motive? The trial told us what happened and how it happened, but we'll probably never really know why he did it, just because he wanted to? What goes through someone's head to go from a first date to something this monstrous? It's a question that Sade's family will probably have to live with forever. And, the fact that her head wasn't found makes me think that that's where he shot her. And honestly, this whole thing is just such a scary reminder of the dangers that are out there, especially with online dating. You just never know who you're talking to. Sade did what many of us do every single day. She met someone, she took a chance, and she paid this horrible, horrible price. What her family is doing with the Sade's Voice Foundation is just so important because it makes us talk about the ugly truth, I guess, of who is most at risk in our world and what we can try to do to protect them. So what do you guys think about this? The fact that it was all so planned and just so brutal is just so insane. Let's go back to the stuff found in his ceiling, okay? What? Different women's clothing and an ID? I mean, I doubt Maxwell was wearing the women's clothing, so is that going to be investigated? I have this sick feeling, and I know that many out there feel the same, that Sade was not Maxwell's first victim. First of all, do you really your first victim? Like, are you comfortable and prepared for it? Also, the Netflix shows he watched after deleting her photos apparently had a scene about a dismembered body being washed up on a beach. So is that where he got the idea? He was also so calm on the bus hours after murdering and an innocent girl. Something seems off. He has no soul behind those eyes. It's not right. This isn't his first time, I feel. I really want to know what you guys are thinking, so drop it all in the comments below. Let's talk about it. And if this story hit you as hard as it hit me, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Every little bit of support helps, guys. Like taking 2 seconds to click that little button, honestly, helps this channel so much. And it also makes sure that stories like Sade's are never, ever forgotten and are seen by as many people as possible. And most importantly, you guys, this was a real person. Sade Robinson deserved to grow up, to get her degree, to live her life. She was about to graduate. Her light was put out, but her family is making sure that her voice is going to be forever heard. Check out her foundation in the link below in the description if you want to know more. Thanks so much for watching, guys. And until next time, stay safe, look out for each other, and I will see you in next week's video. Bye. Besitos.